Hello.
Hello.
Welcome back to the Synchronicity Podcast. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Megan.
And we are here to change your brain, to change your life. We take old programming that you potentially were taught in childhood, flip it on its head, and help you create a new perspective of life, giving you options and tools to be the best adult you possibly can be.
And we use things like microdosing and rescripting with philosophies from Eric Berne and Carl Jung versus psycho-ass Sigmund Freud, who doesn't even deserve to be part of mental health. But, you know, that is for a different day. We can talk about that, you know, or how they're teaching Marxism in college. But here we are. Okay.
I mean, technically, this is a perfect segue because Freud taught victimhood, and today we're starting to talk about victimhood.
It's because he was a narcissist.
Yeah, so, like, actually, it's a perfect segue into talking about victimhood because a lot of Freudian theory keeps people in victimhood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, here we are. And that's one big thing, like, Freud didn't give tools. Carl Jung and Eric Berne together, that's a lot of what our work is, give tools to become a better version of yourself. And then you don't really need a therapist, where Freud heavily believed in keeping people under his finger, I guess would be a good way to describe it, because he had a very sick, although he was brilliant, he had a very sick way of going about things. And like Meg said, he was a narcissist.
I mean, a lot of narcissists are brilliant, but they're fucked up. So Sigmund Freud's nephew was actually the one that came up with marketing of subliminal messaging. So, you know, they had a whole fucked up family.
I mean, that book, Subliminal, is wild.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's, you know, just research MK Ultra and a lot of the stuff like psychiatrists, psychotherapists all have had and done. It's not a good look.
No,
So.
but you know, you have to have a strong society that empowers people instead of perpetuates victimhood, or you're just going to have a whole bunch of victims, because that's kind of how subliminal messaging works.
Well, I mean, yeah, of course. Like when MK Ultra and everything came along and started shifting things, they basically implemented victimology into the psyche through subliminal messaging and mass media and things like that. But if you really look at like communism, I mean, what mass media, mass banking, like we're on our way there. So, and you know, in order to take down a country like America, you have to have, you know, it's a by the people for the people. And so you have to basically take out the people or make them feel powerless in order to destroy America. And they've done a pretty good job of it. I don't think they'll succeed, but I would say that 98% of the population is victims today. Oh, yeah. And live in victimology because they have been brainwashed and programmed into making excuses, you know, and versus taking radical accountability. Nobody wants to take radical accountability anymore. Everybody wants to make it somebody else's fault. So,
well, and it's amazing how much, and like you said, like how deep rooted victimology currently is in our society, because even in just like social media, or if you go out to the grocery store, and like currently, like right now with everyone talking about inflation, right? It's like, well, life is what is it in your world? Is life happening to you, or is life happening for you? And so many people take the whole approach of it's happening to me. I'm a victim to my reality. I'm a victim to this. I'm a victim to that. And the baseline of it, it's really quite amazing, right? Because it's all been psychologically programmed from debt system, school system. Everybody is, you know, not everybody, but majority of our society is living paycheck to paycheck because of choices that were made because of the victim mentality that was subliminally put into our society.
Well, I mean, I think that a lot of things go into that, but, you know, debting has just become, I mean, I think the majority of Americans don't make enough money. They actually rely off of debt culture,
right,
in order to make ends meet every month. And the millennial generation is actually the first generation that is not as well off as the generation before it.
Right.
And so that in itself, you can either collapse underneath it, and it's heavy as millennials. Like, I won't lie, it's kind of freaking crazy that we do not have the opportunities that our parents did. And so, you know, we have to make lemonade out of lemons. And, how do we do that? Entrepreneurship. How do we do that? We have things that they don't have. So yeah, maybe we're not as well off just naturally, but in some ways that's a good thing. And this is where you turn victimology on its head and turn it into, adversity. And adversity is opportunity placed in the correct mindset, right? So if you take radical accountability and you go, okay, well, how do I make the world a better place because I don't like what's happening and I don't want my kids to face what we have, right? I want my kids to be better off than I am. And go back into the old model of I will make the world better for my children. And I think we kind of have gotten away from that model. Gen Z and millennials are called spoiled and, they have no work ethic and da-da-da-da-da. Well, how would you feel if you were entered into a world where, the majority of us, as it stands now, can't enter a 9 to 5 and buy a house and do the things that our parents did. So they don't understand what we're facing. And not that that's an excuse, but that's a real thing. So we have to do differently than our parents did in order to accomplish what, we want to be able to do. And so we can't go about it the way that they can. It's not about, sinking into a victim and saying, oh, well, I'll never have what they have. We just have to go about it differently. We have to be more creative and ingenuitive and industrious in order to maneuver what's going on and in order to shift things. And it takes a different way of thinking than ever has been thought, right? And we can't just follow in our parents' footsteps. It's not going to work. And we have to step out of this victimhood that's been programmed into us so that the, government or whatever can control who we are and what we're doing. And, again, adversity becomes the greatest stepping stone if you look at it differently than, oh, well, I'm just a victim to this. And it's the same with trauma or anything else. You either face down your trauma. And actually, the majority of entrepreneurs create their company off of their trauma. And I was watching this. One of the ladies off Shark Tank, she was saying that she would never invest in a rich kid.
That's fair.
She will only invest because they never had to work. And they never had to really, face adversity. So she's like, they never succeed. It's always the kids that were waitresses or really watched business happen versus just studied it in a book that actually end up being successful. So she said that's one of her strategies when you go on Shark Tank is that she always asks you what your background is. And if you grew up poor, she will usually invest. But if you grow up poor and with some kind of disability, she said that's a sure way to discover somebody that will make a ton of money because they have something to prove. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Talk about psychology, right? If that person has already created something off of their adversity and they're bound and determined to succeed, they will, versus a kid that grew up with, and it's inherited wealth syndrome, right? We talked about this.
I know many friends that, even family members that came from a significant amount of money. I can think of one individual off the top of my head. Her dad is most likely, I'm pretty sure he's very close to a billionaire in the commercial real estate world. And she's watching her bounce from one thing to another, to another, to another. She can't stay focused, but her dad bails her out every month, and it's okay, well, he pays her rent and does this, and she doesn't have to be disciplined. It's her choice to not be disciplined, but she doesn't have to work for anything.
Well, it's I don't even know if it's a choice or it's actually legitimately something that's programmed into you from, even if you look at Elon Musk, right? His dad was super rich, but his dad abandoned the family.
Yeah, his dad took off and he didn't get anything.
Right, so a single mom.
Yeah.
And the majority of billionaires or things like that, either military or single mom. So they saw the adversity and they saw the suffering.
Well, I was even reading this morning about Steve Jobs and how he sold his Volkswagen Bug for $1,500, back in the day. It was 1970 something, to invest in his company. And it was crazy. I don't remember the statistics off the top of my head, but it was talking about pretty much he had nothing left. He was literally down to, he had to sell his car to be able to get the last like few bits and pieces for his vision to come together. I mean, he built it out of his garage with his friends. And then, you know, that $1,500 ended up being like, in today's money, it's like insane per stock or whatever. But it was pretty much, he took the $1,500 to allow for people to invest in Apple. And had he never done that, Apple wouldn't be what it is today.
Well, but I mean, that's a story. I mean, same with like Jeff Bezos. He started Amazon with like next to nothing. It was a bookstore. I remember Amazon as a kid. It was like where you got used books or whatever.
Yeah, it was something like that. And then I know like his wife had come in and was like, what if you like changed it and did this and changed the whole thing? But I mean, he sat behind a computer for years before anything ever happened.
Well, but that, yeah, I think, I mean, even Uber, which was the fastest startup in history.
Airbnb.
Uber
I mean, that
was
was
the
a college
fastest.
kid like that was renting out his couch.
But none of them have, you know, there's very few extremely wealthy people or extremely good entrepreneurs that have a backing in wealth.
I don't think any of them. Can you think of one?
There's got to be some. I mean, I don't know of any, but I know there's got to be. Well, I actually know of one, and I forget their name, but they used to, one of my pilots used to fly them, and they were two brothers, and they were in medical tools, like scalpels and stuff.
But
their dad was a billionaire.
But he only invested, didn't he only give them $1 million each?
He gave them $1 million each.
And said, like, this is it.
And then
do it.
Yeah. And then they put their money together and started the company, and they are both billionaires now. I forget the name.
But even then, I wouldn't consider that. I mean, that's an investment, but that's not where there's like a significant amount of money flow constantly pushing them, because there's no fear of failure at that point. If there's money always backing you, you never have to pivot and problem solve.
They're an anomaly.
Mindset. Yeah.
The majority of kids that I know that grow up with wealth, and I know quite a few, are completely just like inept.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not of their own doing, but it is pretty wild to see the difference. But, you know, that could be, you know, so often we talk about in our society, like this privilege culture, you know, but like, is privilege a form of victimhood in the sense of like, you know, if, you know, you're pretty, you're skinny, you're this, you're that, does it actually make you better, or in a sense a victim to the situation?
Well, it's a way of people manipulating other people and just saying, like, you're a hater, you don't know what I've been through. So, yeah, of course, it's playing victim, and you're trying to cancel or hate on somebody else's attributes that may or may not help them. It's the same psychology of, like, everybody thinks that beautiful people have it easier, and it's actually not true. And actually Teal Swan was just talking about the more beautiful a woman is, or a man for that matter, they're some of the most rejected people in the world because people objectify them. They're not human. And, you know, they're this object to be obtained, but once they obtain it and have it, then they realize that it's human and they don't want it anymore, because beauty is flawed just like anything.
Right.
But there's this whole idea of like possessing it, right? And it's kind of like the story of Helen of Troy, right? How much destruction did beauty cause? And she was just a human.
Well, even like Cleopatra, I mean, they talk about in, you know, ancient Egypt how she was idolized in a sense because of her beauty.
She wasn't beautiful.
Oh, which one was it then? There was one pharaoh that was a woman that she was idolized.
Oh, I have no idea. Maybe Nefertiti or something. But
maybe it's Nefertiti.
So Cleopatra was not a beautiful woman.
No, but she was just the way she went about things.
She was just probably one of the smartest women in history.
Yeah.
And the way that she presented herself, I guess it was like her voice was super wild.
Well, and she was the one that and I don't quote me on this because I did not do research on this prior to this because it just came up, but I'm pretty sure she was also the one that her entire thing and her goal in life was to be cat-like. Like, even down to the way she did her makeup. She was, like, the first pharaoh, that was very big into, like, the winged eyeliner and, like, emphasizing her face. But she was obsessed with cats.
Never heard that. But
Yeah, she like had a weird thing with cats. Now, it might be wrong, but that was I had seen something about how like weirdly she obsessed cats and like studied them.
Well, I mean, the cats are the representation of the feminine. Makes sense.
Yeah, like even down to like the way she moved and the way she wore her clothes so that she could like almost slink like a cat.
Where were you reading this?
It was some crazy like National Geographic like email I got a couple weeks ago, and I was like, oh, and then I just was like scrolling through it, and I was like, wow, that's kind of bizarre. But I mean, also, I kind of thought it was. I never said anything to you because how would they have known?
I have no idea. I mean, the Egyptians were obsessed with cats. It's probably not wrong, but it's just interesting.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. I thought it was kind of a weird article, but I thought it was cool at the same time.
You know, again, and then there's that whole like, do people just make shit up to like
facts
to write an article? I mean, that's still a cool article.
Blue winged eyeliner after lapis.
But Cleopatra is a very good example. Like, you know, her autobiography is fascinating. I'll put it in the show notes. It's actually, I've listened to it a couple times because she's so fascinating on how she maneuvered. I forget the name of her family. It'll come to me. But, I mean, she had a fucked up childhood.
I mean...
And her siblings were, like, killing each other and stuff. It was wild. So she came from a lot of adversity, and she should have never been on the throne. And then when she did ascend the throne, and she had to marry her brother and all of that because her dad was killed, you know, the way that she maneuvered keeping Egypt separate from Rome by, you know, having Caesar fall in love with her. And then, you know, after Caesar died, then Mark Antony, you know, she's brilliant. I mean, she's probably one of the most brilliant seductresses in history. She's fascinating to study because she realized that seduction was in the mind. It wasn't in the physical,
right?
And how you made somebody feel. And, you know, both of those, I mean, Mark Antony killed himself to be next to her.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so funny, like you say that, right? Like what society used to be like in the game, not necessarily the game, but like understanding psychology on a level of like, okay, well, obviously Cleopatra couldn't be a victim. Mark Antony, well, suicide can be considered a form of victimhood. Or, you know,
well, Cleopatra committed suicide too.
Yeah.
With a snake.
And so, you know, it's like, it's fascinating what we see now as victimhood versus what possibly was seen as then. Or they probably didn't even know what victimhood was at that time.
Well, they did, but it was life or death, right?
Right.
And we don't see it like that.
No, but it is life or death.
But it is life or death in a lot of ways. Like especially in our generation, the generations after us, like we're facing debt, a recession, like inflation that no generation ever has, and we have to rise to the occasion. We don't have a choice,
right?
You know, by the time, you know, like Social Security, all of the things that are going on, we're going to have to find ways around. And we better get out of this victimology and into our brains and into the consciousness and figure out how the heck to fix what the other generations have screwed up. And, you know, technically we are victims. Yeah. Okay, well, we didn't make this debt. Well, guess what? We're responsible for it because it's, you know, inherited debt, inherited issues. And we can't continue to repeat this or we're going to see some really ugly times. So we have to undo what has been done. And the only way that we're going to do that is to get out of victimhood, realize this is a life or death situation of America, of our own lives. How do we want, you know, our lives to look when we get to the end of them? How do we want our kids' lives to look, and start fighting for, you know, what we want the world to look like? Because the adversity we face is unlike anything, you know, the world has seen in probably... Well, since like Cleopatra, actually, she faced it, so I shouldn't say it's never. But you know, we have to come out of this in some way or another and get the programming out of our brain that it, you know, even if it's true, we're still accountable now.
Well, and victimhood is comfortable. Victimhood can be a form of comfortability, right? Like I'm just gonna be a victim to my past generation. I'm going to be a victim to my situation. I'm going to be a victim to my job. I'm going to be a victim to all of this. Or it's, do you step in, have the adversity, be even more uncomfortable, and change the way you think? Change the way you think, the way you act, the way you go about life. Like, it's a choice. Both are uncomfortable.
Well, but it's not programmed in. And this is what I'm learning is like, even in my own growth, it's like, even when you're facing rejection or, you know, you want to control and you want to fix it, you're actually better off just flowing of like, oh, okay, well, that happened, and you move on. And people have a right to be who they are. You have a right to be who you are. And if you stay out of the victimhood, your mental health and everything is so much better. It's actually crazy because you're just like, oh, okay, that happened. Now what am I going to do? Okay, that happened. Now what am I going to do? Instead of this like poor me shit that we all have been programmed to go into. You know, it's like college was, you know, is like $300,000 now. It's gone up like 400% since our parents went to school. Why the hell are we going to school? They're not teaching you shit anyway. You know, they're teaching you Marxist theory and victimhood and bullshit. Like, you're being taught by betas. Alphas are out there owning entrepreneur. Like, you want to know how to get out of victimhood? Find people that you want to be like and get around them. Because that is how you get what you want in life. You hang out with the people that already have it.
Well, and that's exactly it. We just instill victimhood over and over and over again.
Well,
now I'm a victim to all of my student loan debt. Now I'm a victim to my car debt. Now I'm addicted to, 7% interest. It's crazy.
But think about how much time we spend in schools with people that have accomplished nothing.
Oh,
you know,
I
have so much respect for teachers, but these people are teaching something that they know nothing of. It used to be that teachers would come in and teach that owned a company, that had this, that had that. You were learning from people that had real world experience. And it was so crazy because one time I was on a plane flying, and these were billionaires out of New Jersey that were a real estate company. And he was talking about how he pulled his daughter out of college because she got a D on a paper in a business class because she had written the paper based off of his company. And he went in to talk to the teacher and was like, yo, like, this is written on real world experience. She goes, but it wasn't by the book. And he said, but this is what actually made me my billions. And she goes, yeah, but it wasn't by the book. And I like looked at him and he goes, that's all you need to know about college is that they're doing it by the book and that stuff doesn't actually work. They're not teaching you how to succeed. They're teaching you how to fail because the system makes more money off of people failing. And the business books are not written by billionaires or people that have real world experience. They're written by some professor or, excuse my language, idiot, bimbo in an office that doesn't know how to do things in the real world. And like, we need to recognize that college and things isn't everything, but I will stop tangenting now. But
it's true. Like, I took a few business classes in college and it was a fucking joke.
You know, the best education I ever got was hanging out with billionaires on private planes.
You know, the best education I got was fucking serving tables, understanding human psychology, and how that service industry can teach you more about people and business than a fucking textbook. Just saying. And, you know, you can hang out with billionaires too, but not very many people get that opportunity.
No,
you got a lot more like...
I realized how privileged I am.
You got an MBA in the 2 years that you flew private.
2 years.
5 years. Well, the 2 years that you weren't working specifically with the individual. And then you got a PhD when you were working in DC, pretty much.
Yeah, for real.
Because you learned the ins and outs of other things. But the bottom line is that we all have choice, and you can either choose to be a victim of your reality. You can choose that life is just a really shitty situation and you're just going to live your life every day the same way your parents did, and you don't want to change it. And life is happening to you. Or you get to pick that life is happening for you and you have opportunities, and it's all in how and what you do with those opportunities that can not only change your entire world and surrounding, but also can change generations to come, not only mentally, psychologically, but also financially.
We've just got quite a task ahead of us, and I hope that y'all are ready to step into it with us because it's going to be a wild ride, and, you know, we're here, and we'll support anybody that wishes to also, like, step in and do the work. It's why we're here, and, you know, we understand what has gone on and what is going on, and you know, just step in. You're gifted and the world needs your gifts. So don't let anybody tell you that you don't have something to give to the world, because if you're here for a reason. So
yeah, and just do better than the last generation, because they did the best they could with what they had. And now we get to do the best we can with what we have.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to us. I think we're almost up to like 25 subscribers. Woohoo! If you have any recommendations on what you would like us to cover in a topic, or if there's anything, I know we've gotten multiple people have messaged and reached out already, like, hey, can you elaborate on this? And can you elaborate on that? Can you do a podcast just on this? So we have definitely creating traction in regards to listener requests. So thank you so much for reaching out in regards to those. If you are listening to us on Spotify or Apple, please like the show. Subscribe to the show. We are putting a lot of content out right now, so binge us if you haven't, if you've just started listening to us for the first time. And also, massive gratitude for all of those who have been with us through this crazy journey over the last 3 years. We have really shifted and changed, but thank you so much for sticking with us during this wild ride of life. And if you do have any comments, suggestions, or just want to tell us you like us, or you tell us you don't like us, you can always DM us at synchronicity_sisters.
Don't tell me that you don't like me. You won't like what I have to say. So
I mean, if we trigger you, I mean,
if you want to get into debate, that's fine. But if you just message me and say I don't like you, I'm going to be like, okay, that's called a projection. Like, I'm triggering you. You're welcome. So you won't like what I have to say.
I mean, that means they have the opportunity to grow. We just encourage to let you be who you are. But most people, if you don't like us, you've already unfollowed us by now. Yeah. So, did I miss anything?
Nope.
Okay. All right. And until next time, bye.